Hi everybody, welcome to Dave's World, your home for automotive mechanical entertainment. So I decided to do something a little bit different today. This is what my garage looks like currently, and I decided that I have to clean it up, and I figured while I was cleaning I would tell you guys stories from when I was a full-time mechanic. I'll also tell you a little bit of story of why the garage looks this way. And I thought it would be kind of fun to do sort of a what it's like to be a mechanic and also clean the garage at the same time. So I don't quite know how this video is going to come out, but I'm going to need your feedback. If you guys like this video, let me know. If you thought this was dumb, tell me. If you think it was awesome, let me know and I'll keep doing them. I really appreciate that, guys, and here we go. But before I play this video for everyone, don't forget to turn on your notifications so you can see some future updates on my channel whenever I post them. Thank you again, everybody. Hopefully you enjoy. First things first, let me grab some gloves. The reason why my garage looks like this disaster is pretty much what a garage looks like whenever you're done with any project. You just have tools and car part boxes everywhere. So what I just got finished doing was on Sunday 2 weeks ago, I had to do a water pump on my wife's Equinox. Now, the water pump on a 2014 Equinox pretty much looks like it was designed to be on the back of the engine, and then they built the truck and the rest of the engine around the water pump. So everything had to come out of this truck. I'll show you guys some footage while I'm explaining it. Because of that, I had parts everywhere. The problem is I finished the job on Sunday, and then on Monday I had to go for surgery on my stomach, and I have not been able to do any heavy lifting or do any kind of mechanic work in the last couple weeks. What I decided to do was literally just close the garage, and this disaster has been sitting here since. So I at least want to get my garage manageable. I am in the middle of doing the wide body on the Corvette, which you guys have been watching, and I'm in the middle of doing some stuff to the motorcycle and the Cobra. So there are parts that are going to be around, but I at least want to get the bulk of this stuff out of the way, and I'll talk a little bit about mechanic work along the way. So first things first, let's attack maybe all these cardboard boxes. I want to at least get them in one spot. So I guess the first story I could start with would be, how about this? I used to work at a shop that worked on heavy equipment, and back then I was about 25 years old, and I was working there, I want to say, for about 4 months, and throughout that 4 months I made friends with some of the people at the shop. Well, one of the guys at the shop was 20 years old. He worked there for about a year, and he found out how much I was making from me. That was my mistake. See, this was back when I was young, and I didn't think it mattered if somebody knew how much money I was making, but I learned my lesson from that one situation. And this is something that happens in mechanic shops. A lot of other mechanics are jealous of what other guys can do, or the kind of work they do, or the kind of money they make, because they feel that we all do the same thing. Why does someone make more or less, even though your skills might be better in other areas? So I made the mistake of telling him how much I made, and this made him furious, and he decided to go and basically give upper management a problem and wanted a raise, and he was pretty loud about it, and he was pretty angry about it. So what ended up happening was they fired him because he just didn't go about it the right way. You can't walk into your boss's office and just say you want more money because someone else makes more money than you. You have to be valuable. You have to basically be worth what you're asking the company to pay you. And he went about it the wrong way, and he got fired for it. I kind of feel like it was my fault, but at the same time, I was never exposed to something like that before. I thought we were friends. I didn't know that him knowing what I was making would turn into a major issue, so I learned my lesson. Unfortunately, this is something you're going to be stuck dealing with in any workplace. You know, I'm 38 years old now, and I would never tell anybody what I make, actually because of that situation. It was just something I never realized would ever be a problem. In fact, in my mind, I was probably talking about what I made because I thought he made the same. I just didn't think of that. It just wasn't something that I thought of, and I regret it. But at the same time, you know, I also learned a valuable lesson. I would never ask for a raise unless I felt I was valuable enough. And I certainly wouldn't go about attacking management or the owner of the company for that kind of money. I would try and find a better, healthier, calmer way to do it. So that's something you will deal with in the mechanic world. There are a lot of people out there that are jealous. There's a lot of ball busting, a lot of fighting, a lot of people throwing you under the bus. You know, you're always going to have cliques in every job, but the important thing is if you're good and you have a good skill, make sure that you get paid for that skill, and make sure the amount of money you're being paid is appropriate. And if it's not appropriate, make sure that you're at least asked in a proper way to do so. Try not to get yourself fired while you do it. I know I myself have asked for many raises over the years, because a lot of times I always felt I wasn't paid enough myself, because, you know, you're always treated like you're beneath the people who are basically in charge of running the place. And when you're treated like you're beneath someone, you know, that sort of makes you feel like you want more money. You know, more money kind of helps you decide, you know, you're willing to put up with the crap that you're dealing with. But at the same time, more money doesn't fix your sanity. Sanity really comes from the type of work you do. And if you're just not happy doing the work, I don't care how much money you ask for, that kind of work will not, that kind of money will not make you feel better if you don't enjoy your job. And at the end of the day, it's the job enjoyment, which I've left a couple jobs in my day, because you're putting your body at risk while you're working all this stuff, and it's very backbreaking. And you want to feel like you're making enough money, because there's a day where you can come into work and then hurt yourself and you might not be working ever again. And you at least want to make enough money to be financially secure. So that brings up a good point. What do I mean by that? Well, I was a mechanic. I'm still a mechanic by trade, but I was a paid mechanic, meaning I did it as a full-time job. I had a career, and I worked for trucking companies. I worked for General Motors. Oh, tripped on a fender. I worked for trucking companies. I worked for General Motors. I worked at PSE&G. I worked at a lot of different places. So throughout the course of me working at different places, I met different mechanics along the way. Some people were younger, some people were older. What I noticed early was that the older mechanics all had physical problems. Let me give you some examples. So one physical problem is, I knew a guy that had a fake finger. He was working on a truck one day, and I'm just moving that over there for a sec. He was working on a truck one day. He got his finger cut off, and what they had to do was, basically they put the finger back in place, but inside the finger they had to rebuild it. So the finger was stuck like this. So what they did was they surgically made the finger hook. So he was able to actually grab tools, and he was able to hold on to things, but at the same time, his finger was permanently stuck. And, you know, witnessing things like that would always bother me, but I thought, you know what, as long as I'm safe, I probably will never have a problem like that. Well, I ended up getting injured myself. Let me show you guys something. Right here, I have a permanent scar. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but I have a permanent scar. This scar happened because I was drilling a hole in something, and it was a piece of metal. The piece of metal spun around and it sliced my thumb. No big deal. You're a mechanic. You work with your hands. Look, I have a cut just from yesterday. All I did was close a hood on a vehicle, and there was something under the hood that got me. That right there is an injury. It's still an injury. It's just something that happens when you work with your hands. The problem is, this injury caused me to lose my job. I was working at PSE&G, and having an injury that involved stitches was what's known as an OSHA recordable. I got hurt on the job, and because it was an OSHA recordable, I ended up getting let go because there was a little bit of a political situation happening, and that's something else you're going to run into. So what happened there? Well, the reason I got let go is, well, the reason I say it was political is because, now again, this was when I was younger. I want to say I was about 23 years old at that time. So when I was 23, I worked there, and I lost my job due to political reasons. Well, I was working under people. So because I was younger and I was like a new guy on the totem pole, I would do jobs with other mechanics. And when you do jobs with other mechanics, you're on their work orders. So I was working with another mechanic, and they screwed a job up. Because they screwed the job up, and I was working with them, it was blamed on me. I didn't know that that job was screwed up until they decided to use my hand getting cut against me. So when the original problem happened, it was not brought up to me, therefore I was not able to defend myself. So because it wasn't defended previously, it was used against me when I cut my hand. So now I have this thing against me that was never argued. They're sitting there going, well, you never argued it. So since you never argued it, it must be true. So now I have this cut in my hand, and they basically used it as 2 strikes. And you know what? You're too unsafe. And since you're too unsafe, we're going to let you go. And that's how I lost my job working at a place. Now, the crappy thing was I was working at a GM dealership, and I gave up the GM dealership to work at PSE&G. And I was really excited. I had thought I made a great move up. I thought it was a better place for my career. I thought I had a future. What I didn't know, and for the first time in my life, I had to experience, was basically like how political stuff at a job could really ruin your career. I had no idea that that type of thing could happen to me until I was experiencing it for the first time working there. I wish I never did, but you know, thanks to me experiencing that, it really opened my eyes to really having to watch my back. I've worked a bunch of different jobs since then. In fact, I've moved around to a lot of jobs because I just wasn't happy with where my career ended up because of what happened there. You know, I had given up the job at the dealership. I was working at the GM dealership, and I had given that career up to go work at PSE&G, which is sort of a maintenance job. And to be honest with you, it was good money in the future because they had a lot of places to move up in the company. It was good money for my future, but at the same time, there was a lot of drama involved, and I was too young to deal with that drama. I think if I got into PSE&G back, maybe if I got into PSE&G now, like I'm 38 now, and I could read people, I can smell a bad situation coming before it happens, and I know when something bad's going to happen before it happens. I know it because I have life experience. If I got into PSE&G now, then I would be able to handle the political BS that's involved, and I probably would have a nice future there. I got in too early. I unfortunately got in as a child, and you know, I was a guy who grew up without parents. So growing up without parents, you know, there's certain life lessons you're not going to learn because you're learning things on your own. You don't have somebody teaching you that stuff. I'm sure maybe if I had a dad helping me and I got the job there and I had a dad that was giving me advice. I mean, I did. Okay, so technically I did have a dad. I have a grandfather who helped raise me, and it's sort of different talking to him because even though he's like my dad, he's older and doesn't explain things the way a father who's maybe 15, 20 years older than you, 30 years older than you would be able to explain it, because he kind of relates to you. There was a big age gap between us. So explaining things to me didn't go quite well, or I just didn't soak it in as much. It was a little harder, and the stuff I was dealing with, he didn't know how to relate, and he didn't know what to say to me back. And maybe I got bad information, I don't know. But you know, maybe if I was learning this stuff, or maybe if I learned this stuff earlier and I got the job at PSE&G, I probably wouldn't have, I don't think I'd have a YouTube channel. I have to figure out what to do with that. Long story short, I have 4 staple guns. I don't know what it is about staple guns, caulk guns, and paint rollers. It's one of those things where you always think you have it, you can't remember where it is, so you go buy another one, and when you get home, you end up finding all the ones you bought. So I currently have 3 of them sitting up there plus this one. So I left it up here so I wouldn't lose it. But now it's getting in the way of some other stuff. Sorry, again, this is new for me. I don't quite know what I'm doing in this video. This is state-of-the-art prototype sort of videos. Hopefully you guys enjoy this so far. What was I saying? Okay, how about this? Let's move on to another story. Okay. Man, this garage is a disaster. I am so embarrassed at how messy this is, but again, let me explain. Wide body Corvette, that is a GMC Acadia that I have to do a complete front end on. Over there is the Jetta. That's all the turbo parts left over. And then over there, I'm working on the Cobra. I have a LS1. It's about a 450, 500 horsepower LS1 that's going to be going in a project car. Plus, I'm doing a supercharger to the Miata. Over there, I have a fuel-injected 4.6 liter that's going in a Mustang. So I have parts everywhere, and I just really want to clean up. And again, that's why I'm making this video. So hopefully you guys understand. All right, so let's talk about another story. So over the years, you make friends, and you end up making friends with either your boss or you make friends with other mechanics. Sometimes it's the whole shop, sometimes it's just one guy. And unfortunately, when you're a mechanic, it is a very, very cliquey type of situation. And what do I mean by that is, I guess to be friends with people in the shop, you have to kind of earn it, because not only are you there for a job, you might be stepping on someone else's feet who used to make money easier, and that person now has to work harder because you're in the shop, because they lost a specific type of job, or they lost, when I say a specific type of job, there might be something they used to do on certain vehicles that now is your job, which is why they created your position, took it away from them, and they lost money because of it. And that person might resent you, which does happen a lot. I remember when I was working at another trucking company that it was a night job. And that night job was basically me and the, what was his name? Oh, the shop foreman. So that night job was just me and the shop foreman. So the shop foreman and I would put in a 12-hour day every single day. And it was a night job. So I would get in at about 11 o'clock and I would work until the next day, pretty much midday. And I was good at what I did back then. I was a full-time diesel mechanic. I was young, and I was the kind of guy who soaked up information fast, and I was good at what I did. And because of this, the older guys didn't like that I would get jobs that were harder. They felt that I should just be doing oil changes and maintenance because I was the new guy, but I also had the ability to do the hard stuff because I came from the dealership. And when I worked at the dealership, I was a diesel mechanic when I worked for GM. So I would work at other jobs, and other mechanics would get a little jealous. Now, I'm not saying they're jealous because I'm so much better. I'm just saying jealousy happens, and that's the best way for me to explain it, because I'm not the kind of guy who's afraid to talk to someone. So when somebody would give me a hard time, I would call them out. So I would be at the shop and someone would be a jerk to me. I don't just deal with it. I ask them why they're being a jerk. Or I ask them why I'm getting a hard time. Or I ask my boss, who was the shop foreman that I worked with, why am I getting a hard time from this person? And he would tell me the truth. He'd be like, hey, they're jealous because you are the new guy and you are doing all these different jobs that I'm giving you, and they're mad at me because of it. And because they're mad at me, they're mad at you. And it wasn't fair. And it turned into a major issue because now, not only are these people mad at me, they're saying stuff to upper management. They're getting mad because they're not getting the same treatment that I'm getting. Which at the end of the day, if I have a skill that's valuable to the company and I'm doing jobs that's valuable, a company is not going to tell me not to do the job for them. A company is going to tell me that they want me to do what I can for them so they could produce the most amount of money. That's what's going to happen. There's just nothing you can do about it. The company's not going to tell me to stop working because another employee is jealous or mad that I can do something they can't do. And it is unfair to tell me not to do a job I can do. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Just be happy you're getting a paycheck. It's hard to keep a job. It's also hard to find employees, and I think this is the reason why. It's the emotion that's behind everything. You know, I think most of the time I've ever quit a job was never really about the money. It was mostly about the drama that I didn't know how to deal with. Years ago when I was working at the GM dealership, I had a guy bring in, now at the dealership, it was a General Motors dealership, but I used to work on all sorts of things. I would work on Oshkosh military trucks. I would work on fire trucks. I would work on like Hind box trucks. I would work on General Motors box trucks. GMC was well known for their big trucks. So one of the vehicles I worked on was a owner-operator. It was a guy who had a Volvo. Oh, I used to work on Volvo too. So the guy had a Volvo, I think it was the VXN. It was a big, you'll probably see them on the road. They have, it's a nice Volvo with a Volvo on the grill, and then it would have a sleeper and a camper. It would be like a sleeper back, big tall 18-wheeler. He came in complaining he had a fuel leak that he fixed himself, that he said he fixed, but he was still having problems with the truck. The truck was running like crap. So I go, now whenever somebody brings a vehicle into the shop, I don't go by what they tell me. I do my own diagnosis. And I still do that today. And we're talking, what are we, 15 years later maybe? So here I am, I'm almost 40. That was back when I was basically 19 to 21 years old when I worked at the dealership. So what I did was, I was like, let me figure out, let me just look at this thing without knowing that the guy worked on it, and let's just see what's going on. So I always check to see if there's codes in the ECM. I check to make sure there's oil. I always check the fuel level. I check the batteries. You know, another thing I like to do is, you know, on diesel trucks, batteries are important. You always want to make sure you have good batteries. So I check to see how old they are. I basically check all of the basics, right? When I get to the fuel system, the fuel looked fine. When you look in the tank, you could see basically diesel has sort of a green hue to it. You could see sort of green, it looked fine. But when I start the truck, it's misfiring. Now, diesel trucks usually have either an electronic injector, and it's like 1,000 PSI, or they have a mechanical pump, and the mechanical pump sucks the fuel in and mechanically injects, right? So usually it's a 6-cylinder inline engine. Well, this one was the injectors, and I believe it had a Cummins. It has a Cummins inline engine, inline with injectors in the valve cover. So I pull the valve cover, and I'm just checking the injectors. Misfiring. I swap injectors, and the misfire actually moves around. And I go, okay, well, obviously we have a problem. Now, I don't like to say an injector is bad, because injectors on an 18-wheeler, I call it an 18-wheeler because that's what the public calls it, but it's a hauler. So that truck, what people don't realize, is like a $200,000 vehicle. So a fuel injector on that truck is like probably like upwards of $1,000 for one injector. So I'm not just going to change the injector. I'm going to figure out why the injector is doing that, and maybe I could even rebuild the injector. So I'm looking at the fuel lines. I clean all the fuel lines out. I have to figure out a place to put this. I clean all the fuel lines out, and I can't figure out why this thing's misfiring, because the truck didn't have a lot of mileage on it. So I go, okay, let me think about this. The guy said he fixed the fuel system, so let's see what he did to fix his own fuel system. Now I'll start listening to the customer. So I look at the fuel tank. Well, all right, so at this point I did notice how he fixed it. I'm just telling the story, so I wanted to get to it later. I just wanted to tell you guys what I had to deal with too. So, okay, while I was doing all this, I did notice that there was a piece of wood under the fuel tank. What this guy decided to do was take a piece of wood, fashion it into a spike. What ended up happening was he was driving down the road and he hit the fuel tank. So the fuel tank on a diesel truck kind of hangs off the side of the truck, and he hit something. So what he decided to do was take this piece of wood and hammer it into the fuel tank. And that's how he stopped the leak. The other idea to stop the leak was he took kitty litter and he put a ton of kitty litter into the fuel tank, and he completely filled this fuel tank up with kitty litter. When you look in the tank, you don't see it, because there's so much of it that when you see through the fuel, you just see, you know, a solid color. I didn't realize there was so much kitty litter in there that he basically sucked it into the fuel system, and that's what damaged the injectors. So I saw the spike in the tank, right? I saw the piece of wood in the tank, and I was like, okay, fine, it is what it is. So let me suck the tank dry. So I put a pump in there, and I go suck the fuel tank dry, and our pump seized up. That's when I discovered that kitty litter, it was so much kitty litter that it was actually probably a foot thick. So it was so much that it stopped the fuel from leaking, but it also stopped any of the fuel from moving. So when we put our pump in there to drain the tank, the pump actually seized up because there was so much in there. So we ended up having to remove this entire tank and just replace the entire tank. And then we had to replace some of the fuel system because this kitty litter caused so many issues that it messed up a lot of the fuel system. I mean, it probably cost this guy, I wasn't doing pricing back then, but I would imagine it cost this guy probably $10,000 in fuel system repairs just because he threw kitty litter in the diesel tank, which I thought was the craziest thing. So this is what I decided. I have a lot of stories to tell. I also have a lot of garage to clean. So maybe I should do this in a series, because I don't want to do like a 2-hour-long video of me just cleaning and talking. I would rather do shorter videos. So it feels like I have anywhere from a 10 to 20 minute video for you guys. What I want to do is I want to end off here. Part of the reason is my stomach really hurts from talking, and it might also be because I've been working the whole time too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this one off here. I'm going to, I'm not going to touch the garage. The garage is a disaster. It's going to stay a disaster. And what I'll do is tomorrow, I'm going to film more cleaning the garage, and I'll tell more stories. So again, this is a prototype video. I'm going to probably have at least 2 or 3 of them. And I want your feedback. So I don't want to put out these really long videos, because I think really long videos get kind of boring sometimes. I like quick little videos when it comes to stories. If I'm doing a build, like if you guys are watching me put a turbo on the Chevy Cruze, then, you know, obviously I might need to do a 30-minute video, because you guys are learning with me how to do it. But I'm just telling stories. I can make these as long or short as I want. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this video here, and I will not continue cleaning this garage until video number 2, and then I'll tell some more stories. My stomach is really starting to hurt. I ended up having to get a surgery on my esophagus, and I haven't talked about any of my health issues on the channel because this is the first major thing I had to deal with since I started the channel. So, you know, even right now while I'm talking to you, I'm holding my stomach because I'm in a lot of pain just from talking. So my apologies, and I think I'm starting to lose my voice too, just because it hurts. But we'll pick this up in the next video, which will be tomorrow. And I really appreciate you guys checking this video out. Hopefully it's something fun that other subscribers would like. You know, not all my subscribers are mechanics, but a lot of the general public doesn't know what a mechanic goes through when they do this stuff for a living, and this is kind of part of it, and the stories are part of it. So thanks again, everybody. Have a very nice day. I appreciate all the support, and then I'll catch you guys in the next video.